And with that, we're moving along with our tour of the region. Can I invite Mr. Daniel Rodwell, Associate Director of Storage Services at NCI, to share what's happening in Australia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Daniel Rodwell. I'm the Associate Director of Storage at NCI, and thanks for coming along to the session this afternoon. All right, where are we located? This is a question that we get a lot. I'm actually representing NCI and the Pawsey Supercomputing Centre, the Pawsey Supercomputing Centre being over on the west coast in Perth and NCI in Canberra. That's a distance, straight line distance of about 3,100 kilometres. That's, to give you an idea, that's actually like working with an entirely different country, but we're one and the same place. So there are a few challenges in working together around that distance. We both run at the Pawsey and at NCI the two national HPC systems. The Pawsey Cytonic system was originally delivered in 2021-22 timeframe, and the Gardi system at NCI in 2019. Both of those systems have been through incremental upgrades during that time, but they are now approaching the end of their design life. So we've got a few challenges ahead. How are we going to address that? So first of all is how are the centres funded? We fit under a thing called NCRIS, the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Scheme. And that is a government-funded activity that funds 26 centres. Not just HPC, but national research capabilities. Something that you have a very large instrument or other capability that is beyond a single institution. Typically they will be hosted at a university, but they are beyond just a single institution. Bringing together that expertise and capability beyond what a single org could deliver on its own. More recently, over the last 2 years, there's been a program called the National Digital Research Infrastructure Strategy, or NDRI. And that's been an ongoing lot of work over those 2 years, really looking at what we need to do to address the capability in Australia across our digital research infrastructures. What do we need to do to build HPC, data, skills, and cybersecurity capabilities? So out of that, one of the things that we have had a very recent announcement for is outcome 3 and 2. But first, before I go into that, I'll talk about outcome 4 for HPC. Due to the ageing nature of the systems in the first couple of slides, Cytonics and Gardi, there was a priority to announce the HPC funding in May last year. That delivered a 55 million injection of funds into NCI and a further 22 million into Pawsey. We're currently in procurement, out at market for those right now. The Pawsey procurement has progressed along to the evaluation, and in terms of NCI, we're in market waiting for the responses to come in. So that's to refresh our HPC capabilities on those centres. For NCI, we have that initial CPU delivery in 2019, and that's getting on a little bit. And for Pawsey, the midlife investment there is really around some of their scratch file systems to help bring them up to where the current expectations are. Outcome 3 is an interesting project that I've been directly involved in, which is around how do we build a data federation between the two centres. More specifically, how do we address the need for persistent storage closely co-located with the HPC. I'll cover that a little bit later in one of the other slides, but this is a very important theme. What we're seeing now is HPC on its own is important, same with AI, but these are largely data-dependent domains. If you do not have the data and storage that's able to be located and accessed by these systems, there's some pretty immediate research impacts. The final piece is around our compute capability for AI and ML. This is something that we've very recently had the funding announcement come through in May, and that's around 32 million Australian there. So collectively, that's in the same procurement as the NCI HPC refresh, so roughly out to market for around 80 million Australian for those systems. We're also working very closely with a few of the other NCRIS facilities, as listed at the bottom of the slide. So what this gives us is a great funding boost for the existing systems or existing centres to deliver a capability that is up to date and relevant to our research needs today. However, what's next? When we go to look at a much bigger picture about what do we need to do to make sure that Australia remains internationally competitive, we need to think about what our decadal plan looks like. How are we going to attract and maintain the funding that we need and to build enduring capabilities at the centres so that Australian research is able to compete on a global stage? And you'll see that through the slides today, the amount of investment that is actually going into the other centres in the region. So what are we looking at? How do we get to where we are? One of the things that we've been doing is holding a number of stakeholder consultation sessions with our key collaborators. And there's been a number of very, very consistent themes that have come through in that collaboration at the NCI level. We are very much still hearing that there is strong, continuing and ongoing demand for CPU capabilities in the centres, to the point where people say to us, please, you need to give us CPUs. We still really need CPUs. Our workload is dependent on them, or it is actually the best fit for a CPU class system. But we're also seeing this rapidly growing demand for GPUs, both for traditional simulation workloads and for AI ML. And the very strong desire to have that co-located and integrated as part of the HPC centres. Definitely not as a separate AI system. That is the message that we have heard loud and clear. But also along with that is our data and our storage capabilities need to be co-located, and they need to be on a performant platform so that we can directly access it from these HPC and AI capabilities. There is a strong demand to not have a need to copy data into place, but have it accessible and particularly in a performant way. And what we also need to do is maintain these classical HPC simulation capabilities, but we're also seeing strong demand for workflows that are coming out of fields that are not traditionally strong on HPC and adapting to multiple containerization approaches. Where we got varying responses, and this is a theme across a number of centres, is around FP64 support in GPUs, CUDA, whether you need an NVIDIA GPU or not, x86 architectures versus ARM, checkpoint restarting, large memory nodes, and system downtime and maintenance sensitivities. We've got a very wide series of responses on that, from some people saying, no, some of these issues are not important to me, to some of these issues are very important to what I need. Finally, we had our H200s topped up into Guardi at the end of last year, Q4 last year. 120 H200s went in. We're seeing very, very strong demand there. The yellow down the bottom is showing free nodes. What's really going on there is likely scheduler backfill. We have very strong demand to the point that this capability is effectively filled already. Before I wrap up, a quick look at some of what the institutional systems. So I've highlighted 3 institutional systems in this slide deck that have had recent changes, that have either taken delivery, gone online with a new system, or have hardware in place. A key theme across the institutional systems is that GPU demand again. They're seeing very strong demand for GPU in their centres, and they're responding in a number of different ways. The big one is Maverick down at Monash University in Melbourne. Jin Tan's doing a great job with her team down there. This system was effectively online about a week ago. It's a GB200 platform, NVL72, and they're doing some really interesting work for that. Another one is the Bunya system at UQ, headed up by Jake Carroll and his team in Brisbane. Jake's got a very long-term approach to what compute looks like. That's really around what does an evergreen HPC capability look like? What do we need to do to bring in technologies that are up to date and relevant to a researcher, and how can we do it quickly? And finally, University of New South Wales have a system called Katana, and that's headed up by Luke and his team in Sydney. University of New South Wales are a major collaborator with NCI, and there's a balance of the needs there between what an institutional system is needed to do and can deliver for researchers locally, through to what do you do when you need very large scaling jobs that are communication bound, and how do we bring them across to the national centres. And on that note, thank you very much for your attendance this afternoon, and my contact details are at the bottom. I'll hand over to the next presenter.